What kind of a city has no streets, no roads between houses, no front doors facing the outside world, no windows looking out onto a public square? 9,000 years ago, in central Anatolia, people built one of the strangest settlements in early human history. They walked across rooftops, they entered their homes from above, and beneath the floors, where they cooked, slept, and raised their children, they buried their dead. This was Catalhoyuk. At first glance, it looks like a cluster of mud brick houses pressed tightly together on the Konya plain. But the deeper archaeologists looked, the stranger the place became. There were no obvious streets, no grand palace, no massive temple dominating the skyline. Instead, life seems to have been built around the house itself. The roof was the road, the ladder was the doorway, and the home was not only a place for the living, it was also a place for memory, ritual, and the dead. So, why did thousands of people choose to live this way? Was it protection? Was it tradition? Or was Catalhoyuk the beginning of a completely different idea of human life? To understand Catalhoyuk, you have to forget the modern city. There were no streets filled with footsteps, no doors opening onto narrow alleys, no clear line between private house and the world outside. The houses were built side by side, wall against wall, like a honeycomb made of mud brick. To move through the settlement, people likely crossed the rooftops. To enter a home, they climbed down a ladder through an opening in the roof. That opening was more than a doorway. It let people in, it let smoke escape. It connected the house to the sky. Inside, rooms were small and carefully arranged. Hearths, ovens, storage areas, sleeping platforms, and the working spaces all belonged to the same compact world. This was not a city of open streets. It was a city of interiors. Maybe the design helped protect the community. Maybe it preserved warmth and structure. Maybe it reflected a way of life where the household was the center of everything. We cannot know for certain. But one thing is clear. Catalhoyuk was a place where people organized the world around the home. Inside a house at Catalhoyuk, the first thing you might notice is the smoke. A fire burns near the ladder. Light falls from the roof opening above. The walls are plastered, sometimes painted, sometimes rebuilt again and again. These were not empty shelters. People cooked here. They made tools. They stored food. They raised children. They told stories beside the hearth. And sometimes they covered the walls with images, geometric forms, human figures, animals, wild bulls, horns set into walls or platforms. To us, these details feel symbolic, almost sacred. But to the people who lived there, they may have been reminders of animals, ancestors, danger, identity, or memory. Catalhoyuk does not give us simple answers. It gives us traces, a wall painting, a horn, a platform. Each one suggests that the house was more than a building. It was a stage for life, death, work, ritual, and imagination. And then, beneath the same floor, archaeologists found something even more intimate. The dead were still inside the house. Imagine sleeping on a raised platform, knowing that under the plaster, generations before you may have been buried. At Catalhoyuk, many houses contained burials beneath the floors. Some held only a few individuals, others held many more. The dead were often placed under platforms, the same kind of spaces where living may have slept, sat, or gathered. This is one of the most powerful mysteries of Catalhoyuk. In many modern societies, the dead are separated from daily life. They are placed in cemeteries, outside the home, away from cooking fires and sleeping spaces. But here, the boundary seems different. The dead remained closed, not as a ghost in a horror story, but perhaps as ancestors, memories, or members of the household who still belong to the living space. Some skulls were treated in special ways. Some bodies disturbed, moved, or revisited after burial. These practices suggest that death at Catalhoyuk was not always a final separation. A house was not just where family lived. It was where generations accumulated, layer by layer, floor by floor, body by body. Catalhoyuk is famous for its symbols. Bullhorns built into rooms, painted walls, animal forms, human figures, some figurines found in different parts of the settlement. For decades, some discoveries were interpreted as sign of a powerful mother goddess cult. But today, scholars are more cautious. The figurines may have had many meanings. Some may have been ritual objects, some may have been connected to fertility, protection, memory, or identity. Some may not have been religious in the way we understand religion today. The truth is, we do not fully know. There are no written texts here explaining the people believed. No king left his name carved into stone. No priest recorded the meaning of a bull horns. All we have are objects, walls, burials, and patterns. The wild bull may have represent power. The painted figures may have carried stories. The house itself may have been the center of ritual life. But Catalhoyuk is not a place that gives us a single doctrine. It asks us to read human life before writing, before temples, before cities as we know them. And every symbol seems to say the same thing. The home was not ordinary. The home was the universe. Catalhoyuk did not appear for a single generation and vanish overnight. For many centuries, people built, rebuilt, repaired, and replaced their homes on the same mound. Old houses were filled in. New houses were constructed above them. Floors were replastered. Walls were renewed. The settlement grew upward through time. This is why Catalhoyuk contains layers of human life stacked one above another. Not one city frozen in a single moment, but a long sequence of life, houses, fires, burials, and memories. Eventually, the dense world of Catalhoyuk changed. People began to live differently. The settlement pattern shifted. The old way of building, moving, and burying did not last forever. We should not imagine a sudden catastrophe without evidence. No single dramatic ending explains everything. Instead, Catalhoyuk may show something more human. A way of life worked for centuries and then slowly transformed. The mystery is not only why Catalhoyuk began. It is also why this rooftop world eventually faded. Catalhoyuk matters because it forces us to question what a city really is. Is a city defined by streets, by walls, by temples, by rulers? Or can a city begin something quieter? A dance of web homes, memories, fires, and buried ancestors. 9,000 years ago, the people of Catalhoyuk created a world that feels both familiar and completely strange. They cooked, they worked, they cared for children, they remembered their dead, they watched the sky from their rooftops. But they did these things inside a settlement without streets, without obvious public monuments, and without the kind of city plan we expect. Perhaps that is why Catalhoyuk feels so haunting. It is not a ruin of kings. It is a ruin of households, a place where the story of civilization begins with mud bricks walls, ladders, hearts, and people trying to live together in a new way. The truth of Catalhoyuk is not fully buried. It is waiting in the layers, beneath the floors, behind the plaster, under the dust of Konya Plain. The earth may swallow, but it never forgets.